Welcome. I'm Nick Edgar.
And I'm Jess Frost.
And we are the co-founders of the 3E Space. This is our podcast. Have you got space for this?
An unscripted and unplanned podcast dedicated to curious, messy, and imperfect conversations about the human experience.
Each week we will pick a topic at random that you, the audience, has said, I'd love to see Jess and Nick explore this topic. So without further ado, grab yourself a cuppa, let's explore, get energised and feel empowered together.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh, now I've got a new wedgie. Oh, well. Hello. All right.
I'm fine.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome to another episode of
Have you?
Have you got space for this? You thought I'd forgotten it then, didn't you?
I know. I love that. I love that when we first started recording. What's the name of the podcast? I've forgotten it. Welcome, though, team. Thank you for bearing with us for a week. But it's good to be back.
I know.
We've had a lot of stuff to sort, haven't we? A house move, imminent.
I know.
How are you feeling?
I am feeling excited
Yeah.
to be here doing this. I missed it last week. I missed it. So I'm excited about that. I'm obviously excited about the house move.
Bring it on.
I'm not that excited about all the things you have to do as part of the house move, the actual moving of the things.
Ugh.
But when it's all there and we can design the new place and make it our own, that I'm very excited about.
You know, my part is very excited about that part.
Yeah, and I think we touched on before, like the 4 years we spent in the previous place, so much happened, so much healing, transition from employment to business owners, everything that we've been through. Like, it's nice to close that chapter and let that go.
Yeah.
And really try and be in the present of what's happening now and creating what's going to happen in the future. That's what I'm bringing to today.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm genuinely feeling really, really, really good. This month's been, for January, very un-January-esque. It's been really motivational, productive, focused. But I'm been a bit prickly today, haven't I, babe?
Have you?
I'm like, I'm fine. And then the littlest thing. Very hormonal. Trying to show compassion to myself and definitely you.
Yeah. But look, and I know, look, we do joke about it, but it's become a real important part of how we are together. Rightly so. Rightly so.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I know I've touched on things like PMDD. It's important to have these conversations. Like, things can get very dark for me quite quickly when my hormones shift. So being able to have a space to talk about it and get it out of my head, so it kind of loses power in that sense. So no, generally feeling so excited for the house move. I have been like energy cleansing this week. I think over the last 4 years, there's been so much clearing out, and I made a conscious decision to, at New Year's, kind of let go of anything that was either not making me feel safe, some things that felt inauthentic, and just not aligned, was just compassionately letting things go. And then with a house move, like, I do love the excuse to throw away a lot of stuff. I don't like carrying a lot of stuff with me.
Yeah.
I'm not someone that holds on to a lot of things, but there was still a lot of stuff that brought up a lot of emotion. So there's been like big breath works, saging, like just purging, to leave it here. I don't want to take a lot of baggage energetically with me. So that's been my kind of conscious decision this week.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I have been historically incredibly guilty of carrying around boxes of stuff that contain actually reminders of parts of me that I've really worked hard to come to terms with, to heal, to to evolve from. But isn't it amazing that when we carry those things around with us, we're almost attaching to some of that?
Yeah.
And I think,
Absolutely.
like, I got my phone up then because I remember a few weeks ago I found a lot of my old school reports, and a lot of that language in some of those was like, I don't want to like go too much trying to find them, but I am going to have a quick look now because I'm kind of on it.
Well, I told you recently, didn't I? I say I don't take stuff with me. I was holding on to parking fines.
Yeah.
Like I'd got old red
that.
letters and parking fines. And I'm like, what fucking energy are you bringing into this house? Like, it was almost like part of me wanted to berate myself for my poor decision making and behaviour in the past.
Do you think that's what it was? Do you think that's why you held on to it?
Yeah, it fuels my low self-worth. It means I get to carry on with some of my BS thoughts and behaviours and things like that. So, yeah, I was like, no, that's going. That's not me anymore. That's not the me that wants to move forward. And rather than fueling, especially when it comes to like money stuff, being irresponsible.
Yeah.
I think that's what it clings on to, this narrative that I'm irresponsible, I'm bad with money, I'm bad with decisions. And it's like, no, I'm on my way to better financial decisions, better behaviour. And that's what I'm taking forward.
Yeah, no, I love that.
You got it.
I love that. Yeah, just like, I think just the language, and this isn't like having, I think it's more of its time. Like late 80s, early 90s. Nicholas has been rather silly and wasted time.
Rather silly. You've been rather silly, Nick.
I know. Nicholas has now switched off almost completely from any worthwhile effort. Nicholas has failed to take the chances offered to him. And his examination results, especially paper 2, were a disgrace. Like, that language reflected back to... I know. It's really shaming. But I think a lot of those narratives I carried with me. And I've spoken about it in the context of football, but I think, like, why would I keep them? Mm-hmm. And I think I've evolved from we keep everything in kind of almost a hoarder way. We don't throw anything away.
Yeah.
And not just personal sentimental stuff, but just sort of anything really.
Yeah.
Find a use for it. I don't throw... Remember when we first met, I wouldn't throw away boxes when we bought something new. I'd be, we can use that box for something. It's like, what? To put with all... You're like, to what? To put with all the other boxes?
Yeah, so
in the cupboard of boxes.
But no, I love you for that. And I love just the fact that we are embracing letting go. It's not avoiding, it's not saying that these things are erased, but,
no.
You know, I think a lot of it as well, I think that we should do an episode. I'm sure there'll be an episode on like child-free living, but it has been something on my mind as like someone that is child-free, that I'm not collecting and holding on to stuff to pass down. I think that kind of helps that.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
This is we're scaling down our house. We're going to have less room, and it's really beautiful. But yeah, the school reports, I found some of mine, and it was quite it brought up sadness because of the lens I look through now from my trauma. Like, all of them say that I have one friend. Or they always say 1 or 2 friends. Jessica struggles to make friends. She's got like 1 or 2 friends that she might see. She's very quiet. She keeps herself to herself. Or I'm disruptive and I'm being too naughty. So yeah, I think from a relational trauma perspective, it's been really like, I just was like, oh, little Jess. And no one knew. It was just like, no one inquired why. And that's what I find kind of sad. And I think is, especially for me talking about children of alcoholics, it's really important to me to raise that awareness because it's kind of goes under the radar, I think, in education. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I really do. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, so that was quite a long introduction, wasn't it?
No, but no, exactly, babes.
Actually, there's one more thing I want to say about that, because what's been really coming up with clients lately has been limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it's on my mind so much at the moment, and why part of this clearing out is so important, because of the attachment.
Yeah.
And even if I know that those things are not true, and I've done more than enough work therapeutically and in other arenas to understand much better through the lens of who I am now, what was going on for me then. But nevertheless, limiting beliefs play such a nuanced almost hidden part in terms of how we think, feel, and behave. And I think to get curious about them in a compassionate way is the first step to really being able to do something about them to create that transformational change. And I think it's really important that we don't, that we're, not that we don't, that being inquisitive about it, what are the beliefs that I have. And actually I was working with someone around the topic of fear, and fear was coming up. Fear comes up for me a lot.
Yeah,
and I think actually being able to use an emotions wheel to identify what other emotions are contributing to the expression of experience by just using the word fear. And then from those words being able to say, well, what, in relation to the situation we're talking about, what are the values that are involved here? And actually, we were able to uncover the fact that sometimes our values can get compromised. And when our values get compromised, often that's when our limiting beliefs will kick in as a way of kind of maintaining the status quo. It was really fascinating. And this is one of the things I love about coaching. You know, you're asking questions, you're holding space, you're sometimes using some tools, but ultimately it's the client that has the breakthrough for themselves, which is the best part. And when you get to witness that, very often there's learning there for you as well as a coach, and that doesn't get talked about a lot.
So true. I see it as well in the group stuff, in the group spaces, like just these, like we had one last night in our COA one where it was just like everyone was like just from someone's share. I love that. And I do think what we've just talked about there, even just clearing out for a house move, is you hear a lot about, you know, changing your thought patterns, saying affirmations that you want to kind of reinforce. But if your environment and people are reflecting back old narratives, old versions, it's going to be really challenging, isn't it? So I think it's kind of a whole shift. Yes.
And actually, you've just reminded me of one last thing. The whole episode isn't going to be me checking my phone, by the way. No, but I've been so excited that the men's space on Sunday that I host, I was like a little child at most. I felt that in that childlike creative energy, and it's like, oh, I want to tell you about this, and I want to tell you about this, and I want to tell you about this.
Tell us, mate. Come on.
It was a word that I came across that I showed you. Eremission. Eremission. The act of gradually fading from the lives of others, not out of malice, but a desire for solitude or renewal. I really like that.
Oof.
And that, again, has been a feature of the past 4 years, hasn't it? Like, just drifting away from certain situations, people, environments, friendships, all of which has had kind of grief and loss and a whole range of other emotions attached to it. But everything that's new that's come in, everything that's been renewed, everything that's been rediscovered, everything that's been brought back to life, creating that relationship. I didn't have a relationship. I only had the most passing knowledge of what an inner child was or a limiting belief or any of that when we moved into that house, really.
Yeah.
So I think, eremission is my word of the week.
Ooh.
Word of the year, actually, so far.
Eremission. Let's do this, babe.
Delve.
Let's do
the bowl
of
curiosity.
The bowl. Go. I'm closing my eyes as well.
I want to write a song about the bowl of curiosity.
Then you shall, sir.
I shall. Self-care for busy lives.
Oh, am I the best person for this?
Self-care for busy lives.
I've got to put my hands up. I didn't write the name on the post-it. And I'm so sorry because it's such a good one.
It is a great one.
I think it came through on a question on Instagram. Thank you for this. This is really important. I think a lot of people struggle with this. Now, I struggle with this and I'm coming at this, like I've just mentioned, like child-free. There are a lot of things that will contribute to busy lives and where self-care just is the first thing to go out the window. We did actually a session, didn't we, on this on Saturday, about like where are we leaking energy. I think it's a much complex reflective practice about this than probably this episode is going to be able to do justice. But first things first, I think that just the word self-care can make people gip, can't it?
Definitely used to make me go.
And it depends what you're looking for when you say self-care for busy lives. So some people it's like, well, I need time for like a bubble bath, or I need time for going out with the girls, or going to a spa day, or something like that. For some other people, it literally is self-care for busy lives means going back to basics. Am I drinking enough water? Like that kind of level busy, where your own basic nutrition, nourishment is non-existent. So how would you reflect on, your own experience of like being busy and looking after yourself? What tends to fall first?
It's a good question. I think my definition of self-care, first of all, is about really at its most fundamental. You know, I've had long periods of my life where I'm high in anxiety or I'm flat out in depression because I had no foundational self-care, really. I would go through the motions of like the fundamentals. I need to wash in the morning, I need to get dressed, I need to go up. But there were days and even periods where I couldn't even do that. So I think from my lived experience perspective, what sits in self-care is the things I need to do so that I can stay within a window of tolerance to actually live my life. So when I think about the term busy lives, what does that mean to me? Like, I've never been particularly career driven up until I found my purpose, like to do what I'm doing now. And obviously being child free has allowed me probably a privilege of being able to be more mindful about where my energy is and to try and act accordingly. But I think what I do know is that when I make my self-care, and by self-care I mean all of the things we've mentioned, but I personally mean being able to do some breath work, doing some tapping, doing some journaling, doing some meditating, sometimes just being in the quiet and being with myself, noticing when I'm being present, creating the intention to do all of those things, but the framework to do all of those things, that sets me up with a chance of success at fitting in everything else that I want to fit in. I think even the way that's written, self-care for busy lives, implies that our life is busy and self-care has to be fitted around that. And it is one of the first questions I challenge any client I work with one-to-one is, if you had a blank page, you know, and I accept you have your responsibilities, but if you had a blank page, how would you begin to build up a foundation of self-care that works for you? What would that look like? Allow yourself to be creative, dream, get that stuff down without any restrictions. Because the minute you start to place restrictions, it's limits again. It's containing self-care. It's almost giving yourself a message to your subconscious, I'm not worth it. So I think that a lot of what I've said is kind of in and amongst all of this. But then there's also, even though everything I've just said is true for me, I can easily fall out of all of that. Even in January, I've fallen out of all of that with the house move, with, you know, working, making sure I'm in a position to do my work as effectively as possible, like all of that kind of stuff, it's easy to just miss one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, it's important, what's the energy behind missing one of those things? And am I doing it reactively? Because actually I'm working on impulse, and that impulse is coming from a part of me that just doesn't want to do the thing that I know is good for me.
Yep.
Because I definitely have a part like that just wants me to not do it.
Yeah.
Wants me to numb out in a different way.
Yeah.
Or is it coming from that more self-led energy of, I know I've got a really, really busy 2 or 3 days here, so I'm not going to set the same expectation that I would ordinarily of what I am able to achieve in terms of my self-care, because it just isn't going to be possible.
Yeah.
And that way I'm setting myself up to succeed in a different way. And again, that's come up with clients this week as well, that exact same thing. What does good look like for me in any given day period? You know, you mentioned your cycle earlier. I know we've had great discussions about this in terms of like how I can support you, what you need. And I think it's all part of it. It's such a big topic.
It is, ma'am. No, it is. I love that. And I think there's some really important reflections. And I think every single person we meet has a different take on self-care. I think for me, a big part of how I look at this is obviously going to be driven by my lived experience of being the child of an alcoholic, where myself, my throat chakra is closing, so let me just unblock it. A lot of the people I work with, we self-abandoned at a very, very young age. And this is very, very important, I think, when it comes to why we choose to look after ourselves. So at a very young age, we don't have the environment to kind of cultivate that real strong sense of self, that strong sense of self-worth, where we are a separate human being, we have our own inherent worth, and we can tend to our needs whilst also considering others. What tends to happen in dysfunctional families, codependent families, is that focus gets placed elsewhere. So everyone else's needs, you're scanning the environment for everyone else's needs before you would ever even consider to going in here, right? For a lot of people I work with, and actually it came up in my peer support call last night, is busyness, productivity, hustle is our safe place. So what tends to happen is subconsciously you're chasing that. You're chasing that sense of safety. And I had a light bulb moment when one of my beautiful friends, Jules, shared something personal to her about this, of this like natural response to doing and more and comparison and all this reactivity, like you mentioned, and how, yeah, it's like these parts of us are chasing it so we don't look at other stuff. Whether that's, oh God, I know that I need to take action over here, which is going to be self-serving. I need to have a difficult conversation and set some boundaries. I've got some emotions bubbling under the surface that I know I need to face. So I'm going to just go here and I'm going to stay busy. And I even had the reflection yesterday, this blew my mind. For a lot of my life, my narrative has been, I'm either too stressed, too busy, or I've got financial worries. 3 main narratives that I tend to, without even knowing, throw out. And I even said to the girls yesterday, I was like, shit, the 3E space, my baby, our baby, allows me to not face a lot of shit. It allows me to say, oh, my business is so small, I'm still growing it, oh, things are really busy, oh, finances are a bit of a worry, and actually being busy in various different ways means that I don't have to face over here. And what we described, again, one of the beautiful ladies, Christy, talked about the fertile void, which is this in-between, this place where we're not doing all of that busyness and focusing and hustling, but we're actually in this messy middle almost, but where we get to just be in the dream and the possibility and the slowness and the flow. And that isn't my safety. Being busy is my safety. So self-care can feel very, very frightening for a lot of people because it's not a norm. It's not a norm to their nervous system. And if we haven't worked on our like core foundation of worthiness, like if we're still driven by the wounds and we're still driven by the trauma, and there's parts of us deep down that thinks we're broken, we're unworthy, there's something wrong with me, I don't deserve love, I don't deserve care, that is going to take a lot of work to even have the intention and the thought of, hold on a minute, I'm saying I'm busy, I've got all this stuff happening, but really there is a lot of room for me still. But my parts don't allow me to see that.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It's deep. And it's why I don't think you can just kind of do one-off workshops on how to have self-care. Because even just for, if I speak to women with how we are conditioned to be serving to others and have this beautiful kind of energy of nurturance and motherhood and all this kind of stuff, like we are constantly conditioned to be looking outside. It can feel like just a nightmare to even carve out any space. So I think there's a lot of compassion needed when we look at this stuff. It's like the parts of us that don't believe we're worthy of it and will distract us really strongly from ever doing anything that's going to take care of us. And then, it's why we have space in our name, because I think any pockets of space to either, whether it is, okay, self-care for me is just practicing mindfulness of just, what do I see? What do I hear? Can I feel my feet on the floor in this moment, and building the safety to be in the moment and present? Or whether it is meeting a friend for lunch and just saying how you feel. Like it's such a different journey for everyone. But I'd say if your narrative is, I am too busy for self-care, I would say there's some gold there. This is the start of something that could end up being a beautiful journey back to yourself, not just your self-care.
Yeah, I haven't got time for is a common narrative.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But when you inquire it, and really dig into it, you're right. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. As you were talking then and sharing, thank you for sharing that so beautifully. But I was reflecting on there's so many similarities in our experience, but a lot of differences as well. I think because of my upbringing, especially within the high performance sporting sense, that felt unsafe for me for a long time as an adult. So actually being busy, striving, didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And I think that plays out sometimes, doesn't it? In terms of like, and this is why we're reflecting on the way here. Sometimes it can be something that our parts can clash about, but actually there's a lot of tessellation in that approach between us. Like, I am feeling safe enough now over the past few years of all the work I've done to be sat here having this conversation with you, to be out there as a coach, to be in and around men's spaces, to be able to not people please when I sense the discomfort of what I value and how I want to be isn't going to go down well with this person. I don't lose that hypervigilance, but I'm able to behave much more often in a way that is aligned with who I am because of the self-care that I've given myself and continue to give myself. And I think it's interesting, the one thing in common though is that self-care is uncomfortable.
For a lot of people.
But I think it is. And I think that's why it can be easy to choose the kinds of self-care that require you to not have to sit in any discomfort.
Yeah. It's like it's still avoiding what's actually going on in here, which can very much be like but just our natural emotional human experience, you know?
But I think what it does do is it gives you like either a dopamine hit or something that will push down and sedate the uncomfortableness under the guise of self-care.
Yeah.
You know?
So true. Like, I would say, like, in terms of my journey towards self-care, one of my first couple of coaches was so good with this, of almost like permission slips to stop. I needed a permission slip to nap. I couldn't do it. I could hear the voices of parents, like, what are you doing? It's sunny outside. You're wasting the day. Like, and just, I needed that coach to be like, just stop. Yeah. And I needed that until I could give it to myself. And I think it's the case for a lot of people where this is hardwired stuff. This is not just like, oh, but go on, doll, you deserve it. And it's okay to cry, and it's okay to have a nap. It's okay to say no to that person. Like, it takes so much courage and so much compassion and so much of, like we even started talking about, letting go of the old narratives, letting go of the old stuff that's reinforcing this. Yeah. Learning to, when I think about even the word self-care, when we think about that self-energy within us, that's like this nurturing, protective, guiding energy. It's like almost imagining the arms around the parts of us that are younger, more conditioned, that don't understand our worthiness, don't understand that this is okay. No one's going to tell us off. Like, we are safe. It's that safety to give ourselves what we need in that moment. That's all I hope for everyone, is that we have enough space to check inwards and say, what's going on for me today? Okay, this is what I need today. Yeah. And even like hormones, now for me, that's only happened in the last couple of years of me really tuning into my cycle and going, oh, okay, I can actually align my life with this. Yes. So it's an ongoing journey, but I think it's deeper than maybe people realise. But I don't want people to kind of feel scared by that. It is always just bringing you closer to your worth, if you can find the right spaces and the right practitioners to support you through that. Because I think it's so conditioned for a lot of us that it's really hard to do it on your own. It is. But I think what I would say that sits alongside that is that when you have the courage, the right person and people and community to support you, whatever that is for you, and you have that first experience of my world's just expanded a little bit, my inner world and my outer world, because I've been able to move through that fear. Yeah. And be supported through it and be witnessed in it. And that doesn't mean all of that stuff goes away and it becomes easy. But I think the best way I can describe it is that self-worth continues to grow and that nurturing continues to bear fruit so that it all expands. If I reflect on the life that I have now and that we have now, that we're building and growing, compared to the life that I had leading up to when we met, which I felt was perfectly okay, but was very contained. And it was about avoidance of fear. And what I would describe as self-care then were things that allowed me to kind of, as I said, create a layer on top of what I really needed to look at in order to expand my world and give myself the privilege and the freedom of being able to explore just what I'm capable of. Because I hadn't felt like that since before those school reports. Yeah. Really? Yeah. Not truly, you know what I mean? No. Not really ever dared to dream that I'm capable of having incredible experiences. Yeah. That for me was scary. Yeah. Like really scary, really frightening. And I think it's not about being brave enough to choose the experiences and diving right in. Maybe that does work for some people. And there's room for that spirit.
but I think it has to be underpinned by a foundation.
Yeah.
And for me, a real transformational moment in my own therapeutic and coaching journey was recognizing that regardless of how busy I am, if I can create a foundation of self-care, which doesn't have to mean taking 2 hours out of my day to drive somewhere, go into a different environment, be pampered, do whatever. It can literally mean I'm going to give myself a minute of box breathing. I'm going to ask myself, how old do I feel right now? What am I feeling? What emotions am I feeling? What's really bothering me? Like, spending a minute like that for me is self-care.
Yeah.
Rather than just going from one part of the day to the next part of the day, white knuckling my way through it and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And giving my power away to other things of how well I might feel or how cared for I might feel.
Yeah.
And just to kind of reverse that and to keep telling myself there's always time for me.
Yeah.
Even in the smallest of ways, there's always time for me. Every single day.
As someone that used the phrase, I don't have any time, I'm too busy, I'm too skint, I'm too this, that and the other, like, that was the biggest sign that there was a load of bullshit under that.
It's one of the things that often I can sense with clients. It's like, when they're questioned, when I was questioned for the first time, I was like, fuck off, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, don't ask me to do more.
No.
Don't ask me to, like, and it's like, no, that's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it sparks up, it activates that protector part that's protecting me from going where I need to go, which is actually into the depths to find the core of my self-worth and to put my arms lovingly around it and to begin to nurture it and let it grow.
Whenever I or a client of mine ghosts, I'm like, this is where the full avoidant mode has kicked in. Yeah. And I see it with my perfectionist clients. And it really is, it's the parts of them that, as their emotions are tapping, as some of the stuff is bubbling to the surface to be held and looked at, like this perfectionist part, this avoidant part, they'll kick in. And it's like so desperate for people to not see that shit under the surface. But actually what these parts don't realise is that with the right spaces, with the right care, it's like letting some of the energy out the top of the Coke can.
Yeah.
You know, with each time and with each safety we build with what's really happening inside. But yeah, whenever I or a client ghosts, it's like self-care is so needed in that moment. And it's like, hello. I'm like my clients, hello.
Yeah.
Hi. So yeah, it's just a protection. It's a way of protecting you, but it's not serving your self-care. And if you can find the path back to that sense of self and that sense of worth, honestly, it will be so much easier. You won't even consider the space, really. It will just be part and parcel of your days. But it's a biggie, and I hope that wherever you are on this journey of self-care, and if you're sitting there today going, oh God, I just haven't got time, celebrating you for even listening to this, but what permission slip do you maybe need? Yeah. What permission slip do you need today? Is it, I just need 5 minutes, I need to ask my friend, partner, parent to help with the children, or I just need a bubble bath, or I just need to go for a walk? Like, joy and the glimmers can be such a beautiful, like, injection of energy. And often we are so set on the path, head down, we don't look up. Like, I remember someone saying to me, my coach saying to me, like, when was the last time you looked up? And when I went for a short 5-minute walk, it was like, just look up. Oh my God, the sky is so blue. And oh my God, I've never seen that on that building. Or like colours and the senses can be so powerful. So don't lose the joy. Don't lose the tiny bits of glimmers in the day either. So think about maybe what can bring you joy that you can prioritise for yourself.
Love that.
Thanks, man.
That feels like a good place to end.
Does. Beautiful question, and I will find out who did this because it was an epic question and I knew it was at the time. So sending you so much love, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah. I'm off to burn my school reports.
And they're already in the bin actually. Bye. Thank you so much for listening or watching this week's episode of Have You Got Space for This. If you're liking what you're hearing and seeing, please subscribe, rate, or review the podcast so we can reach as many people around the world.
And if you're not already connected with us and are aware of everything we do at the 3E Space, in the show notes, you will see all of our handles and ways to get in touch with us, which we'd really love you to do. Get connected with us, give us your feedback on this and any other episodes you listen to, and also topics. Keep giving us topics and, yeah, stay connected. So until next time, thanks for being here.